meeting tonight, okay, there we go. Now we're recording. I looked through the textbook to see what concepts are being taught in. I guess I better bring the phone over here so it's closer. Sorry, I left my earpiece at work today, so I have to use the speaker on my phone. Um, so the concepts in chapter 4 that students really struggle with. I know I covered some of these last week, but I will cover them again because there was only 4 people here with me last week. Um, and also, there is one problem that students struggle with a lot, and I want to try and it's on assignment 2. It's already been graded. A lot of people miss this and they don't understand, so I just want to go over it real quick. It's a quick and easy problem. It's problem 3.1, and it's where are you going to put the phone? I'm going to put it right there. So what 3.1 wanted you to do was to take the cube root of -5, and a lot of students do a -5 raised to the 1/3 power, and no spaces, dude. Ah. And so this returns -1.71. Okay, and if you do the nth root to -5 and 3, it too returns negative. So the students say, well, there's no difference. Okay, what the problem here is MATLAB follows the hierarchy of mathematics. What it's going to do is it's going to perform all operations within the parentheses first. So it's going to take 1 and divide it by 3. And then the next thing it's going to do is powers and exponentials. So now it's going to raise 5 to a negative, or to the 1/3, and then after that's done, it's going to multiply it by -1 and make it negative. That's why you get -1.71. If you want to make sure that you're taking the nth or the cube root of -5, you need to put that in parentheses. Now it's going to multiply -1 by 5 before finding the cube root, and you'll see you get a completely different answer because now it is giving you the imaginary part of that root. Does that make sense? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. A lot of students miss that because they don't put the parentheses around the -5. And if you didn't do it, I'll only take 1 point for that. So, not a lot. Okay. So in chapter 4, some of the concepts that we are learning in here, again, um, let's begin with max and min. If you're given some kind of a time vector, time, let's do this right, time equals some starting value 0.05 to 100. Okay, so there's a lot of time there. Let's make it less uniform here. And you have some distance. Oh, somebody beep beeped. Let's go 9.8 times our time raised to the 2 minus 100 times time. So there's some distance value. So now we want to find, and just so we can see what it looks like, we'll do our plot of time and distance. Sorry, I got a lot of programs running on my computer right now, so it's kind of slow. So here we have a plot, and we want to find a maximum and a minimum on these things. Let's offset it from the x-axis just a bit. Okay, so now we want to find the time at the minimum value. Oh man, I don't like my phone sitting here. It's driving me nuts. So if we do min and we don't capitalize it, it and assign it to a variable of our distance. And what this is going to do is it's returning the minimum value right here. And we want to find out what time that minimum value occurs. So if we take on the minimum, and this works on minimum, maximum, and standard deviation, average, mean, mode, most of your statistical functions. If you assign this value to two variables, the output of the function to two variables, the first variable will contain, in this case, the minimum value. The second variable will return the location within that vector of where that minimum value occurs. And in this case, it's located in the 101st element. And now to find the time associated with that, we go back to our time vector and find out what value is in the same location as our minimum value. And right here we can see that the time is 5.1 units of time, be it minutes, hours, days, weeks, years, whatever it is. But this is how you find the time in this case. If by chance you send a vector, or not a vector, a matrix to this max and min, it returns a vector for the, let's, for instance, min. It'll return a vector of the minimum value for each column. And if you assign it to 2, the first variable will contain the minimum values. The second variable will contain the location within that column of where the minimum value is obtained or occurring or located. Okay? Clear as mud, right?
Yeah, it's clear as mud.
Next thing, I know I covered this last time, but we'll cover it again here, is meshgrid, because you'll be using meshgrid in chapter 4. What meshgrid does is if you have two vectors, you can do this also with matrices, but we do not cover that in this class. We just deal with vectors. So if you have two vectors of varying sizes,
No, that's too long, but stupid.
5, 5, 5, 6, and 7. So one vector has 3 elements, the other vector has 2. And if we try to multiply these together using the element operator, we get an error because they're not the same size. They must agree. So meshgrid takes these elements, and if you assign it to 2 new variables, it makes them the same size. And you gotta have an H in there, stupid. And they can now be multiplied together. Oh, if you use the right ones. A dot times B. And we'll come down here and now you see that A, capital A, has 4 columns of vector A and matrix B has 3 columns of vector B. So they're the same size so that when you multiply them together, it works. Um, a couple of areas that students have problems with here is sometimes they don't assign to new variables. They'll just use meshgrid and it doesn't assign it to anything, so it doesn't really do much. And the second thing they do is what I did here. They forget to use the new variables created in meshgrid in their calculations and still use the old ones and still have problems calculating their calculations won't run because they're not the right size. So be aware to make sure that you assign to 2 new variables and that you use those new variables in your calculations. Any questions? No, everybody's got that? Okay, I expect you all to have 100% on that part. And last thing here that I wanted to cover was loading data files. I think, well, I know in chapter 4 there are some data files that you need to load in order to plot. Yeah, we like plot. Is chapter 4 plotting? No. Chapter 4 is special. It's chapter 5 that's plotting. But there is in chapter 4. Everybody's leaving me. There are some files that you need to load into MATLAB using the load command. So the first and very most important part of dealing with data files is that your data file needs to be within your current folder. If it's not in the current folder, MATLAB will not know where to go to get it. So you have a couple of options. You can reassign your current folder to where your data files are. However, I recommend that you put your data files in your current folder. Let's see here. I have a folder here that's got all of the data files that we use in this class. Oh, here's a good one to play with. So I'm going to copy over the defects.dat file. We teach to use .dat and .text files for our data files. So this defects.dat file is a file that I used for an exam once. So now that the data file is within the current folder, you need only to type in load the file name with the extension, and now MATLAB will load that into its memory and assign it to a variable with the same name as the data file. So I'll clear the variables so we can see this, and we run this, and you'll see here that we have a defects data file that has 453 rows and 6 columns. And now that that's in there, you can deal with the data file just like you would any other. Okay, and this line down here is actually the first column. So I want all the rows in the first column to plot against defects. All the rows in, let's take the 4th column to see what it looks like. So this is some real data that I collected at my office using the tool that I designed. And I stole some of it to put it onto a test for the students. So when you're doing data files, you just got to remember that the data file needs to reside within your current folder, and to use the load command, which is just basic load and the file name with the extension. There is a way that you can change the current directory within the M file, but I highly suggest you don't do it because if you change it to a folder on your computer that does not exist on my computer, then it won't run. Cool. Questions, comments, wants, needs, desires, concerns, complaints? Can you still hear me? I know I moved the phone away as ways. Did y'all go to sleep? Hello? Hello? Oh, okay. You can still hear me. Still hear me. Oh, Jacob fell asleep. Okay, well, that's looking through the chapter. That's the only thing where I see where students have issues with chapter 4. Um, is it chapter 4 or chapter 3? Chapter 4. Yeah, we're working chapter 4. Special matrices. Oh, so we are in chapter 4. So the next one is plotting. I knew that plotting was next.
I have one question.
Oh, good. Questions. I like questions.
I was doing some research on how to do a specific problem, and uh, BurtCat and HorseCat came up a couple times. Should we be at that point yet?
Um, well, those are things that we don't teach, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to send me a copy of what you were doing, and I'll take a look at it. I mean, I see those come up when there's error in plotting,
Uh-huh.
um, but
Okay, I'll send you a copy. Because I
yeah,
was just wondering if there was a different way that was intended on doing the problem without having to use that.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. We don't teach those commands, so yeah, there's got to be a different way from what you're doing. I do know that when on the online session that we'll do next week on plotting, um, if anybody is using the 2016 B pre-release, I don't know if any of you are. Um, there's an easier way to do the plot YY command, um, and I will present that to everybody. I don't know if you'll be able to use it because if you don't have 2016B, it won't work in your computer, but you can sit there and envy me because I have it. Hey, anybody here in 1030?
No?
Yeah, you're 1040. I was just wondering how the 1035 lab's going.
Oh, yes. I'm in 1035 lab.
Ah, how's that going?
We haven't really started yet, due
Oh,
to the holiday, because it's only on Mondays.
ah,
Um, the first class, we put together a robot,
right.
and that's the only class we've done so far.
So did they have the SolidWorks models that I created or not?